On this week's NFV SDN Reality Check, we talk with Emeritus and OpenNet Labs on tapping analytics, orchestration for scaling automation, and VNFs.
CommScope, thinking beyond today's technology to help you make the best decision for your network and your business. Telecom Careers, the #1 global telecom and wireless job board. telecomcareers.com.
Welcome to this week's NFV SDN Reality Check. I'm your host, Dan Meyer, Editor-in-Chief of RCR Wireless News. Well, obviously, the virtualization world is increasingly encroaching onto the telecom space. And today we've got a couple of great guests to talk a bit more about what's happening in terms of this move towards virtualization for telecom operators. Joining me today is Maurizio Strelezzi, who's the CTO of Emeritus. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And also Jerry Donahoe, who's the Technical Director at OpenNet Labs. Hey guys, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate it. Well, obviously, and our guests too, they're both based in Dublin, Ireland, which is a nice change for us this week as well. But let's start off with maybe have you guys give a quick introduction of yourselves and the company. So maybe Jerry, start with you. Maybe get a quick intro of yourself and of OpenNet Labs.
Sure. My name is Jerry Donahoe. I'm a technical director in OpenNet. So OpenNet is a specialist in providing high performance virtual PSS software to some of the world's biggest telcos. We can basically supply systems at scale to hundreds of million subscribers. We also deploy in small operators such as Greenland, where they have only 50,000 subscribers. That's the great benefit of virtualized technology.
Yeah, very good. Great. That sounds good. Well, Maurizio, maybe a quick intro of yourself and of the company as well, please.
Sure, Dan. Thank you very much. My name is Maurizio Strelezzi. I'm CTO of Emeritus. Emeritus is also an Irish software company. We've been in the business of OSS and network management for 11 years now, 12 years, and we provide runtime programmable service management and orchestration systems that span across NFV, SDN, cloud, as well as traditional networks.
Very good. That sounds great. Well, good. Well, again, like I mentioned at the beginning here, kind of the topics we were hoping to cover on this week's show is kind of looking at, obviously analytics is a big part of kind of this move towards virtualization. Orchestration is a big part of this as well, especially when it comes towards automation, which is a big goal of this move towards virtualization. And also VNFs are a big part of this as well. But maybe start off with, I guess, maybe Jerry, maybe our first question towards you. I guess as you look at the space, I mean, what's the role of network analytics? How's it changed as telecom operators are moving towards this virtualized platform? What have you seen out there in terms, I guess, of the greater reliance or maybe the greater capabilities that analytics has brought to or is bringing to the telecom space for operators?
Well, one of the key concepts of the ability to virtualize network functions is this concept of elastic scalability.
Yeah.
And clearly that can't be done without context. And you do need an analytics capability there to make the intelligent decisions as to when to scale up or scale out. For example, in our Etsy PLC that Emeritus and OpenNet worked with some other partners. This is a key capability. We monitor the performance of the components and make a decision based on not just the real time but also the historic trending. This allows us, for example, to ignore momentary spikes. It also allows us to prepare in advance for expected spikes in traffic load. This is a very big advantage, I think, and that's something that will revolutionize the way traffic loads are handled in the future.
Yeah, that's a great point. Obviously, I've talked to a lot of companies about the fact that this move towards virtualization will allow for so much greater use of the networks. But again, this analytics aspect is going to be it seems like so much more important on this. I mean, obviously in the legacy 3G world and then kind of the circuit switch world, analytics are always a big part of it, but this new move towards virtualization and how much more traffic is to be on the networks. I mean, being able to really find out what's happening on the networks in real time is going to be a big part of operators being able to really take advantage of these new platforms. So it seems like that's going to be a huge push going forward. And obviously, it sounds like you guys are doing quite a bit of work on this, so it'll be big to watch that. Well, maybe I guess Maurizio may bring it on a little bit too. As you look at this analytics aspect, but also orchestration in support of increased use of automation and VNFs, how important are these for telecom operators as they look towards this move towards virtualization and bringing on these analytics and these increased orchestration for automation? I mean, how do you see that evolving, and I guess how do you see the telecom space adopting and evolving with this new need?
Sure. Well, we believe the integration between analytics and orchestration is absolutely essential to increase the automation, to support the full automation of the life cycle. I mean, we all see the fast-pacing proliferation of new real-time, on-demand services on the network and the massive scale of these services. That means operators cannot rely on manual on the ability to provision, orchestrate, and manage these services manually. So what you need is, analytics applications like OpenNet to monitor and measure the KPIs of the network and the infrastructure in real time, and then integrate seamlessly and fully in a fully automated fashion with orchestrators such as Amartus to act on these measurements and being able to make the necessary changes. This applies to the full life cycle, but particularly to scaling, as Jerry mentioned, scaling use cases, as well as migration use cases, because clearly sometimes, in virtualized environments, you can run out of resources, you can be overloaded in a data center. So when you realize that through analytics and prediction of use and traffic and load, you can then, based on the orchestrated knowledge and capability of working with a number of data centers, you can actually migrate your resources and VNFs, virtual network functions, over a different data center. So the importance of integrating this and acting on scaling and migration use cases is essential. And we have, like Jerry mentioned, demonstrated this in our recent NFV talk on proof of concept on policy management and control with other partners as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, I guess maybe Jerry, maybe a little follow up on those POCs that have been going out there. I mean, obviously, these are very important to kind of making sure that operators are comfortable with what's happening. I guess the progress on this. I mean, what's your view on how that's been progressing? Because obviously, it seems like operators are becoming more and more in tune to kind of starting to roll out some of these services. But again, we have to make sure that this stuff, I'm sure they're kind of concerned that this stuff is, maybe not carrier grade, but obviously up to their standards. Have you seen pretty good progress in terms of these platforms being able to support what operators are asking for in terms of kind of these virtualization, kind of the analytics and the orchestration needs?
I think most of the work to date has been in the data plane components, and only more recently have people started thinking about what happens from the business side, from the business support systems, and that's something I'm quite proud of in our Etsy POC, is that we actually incorporated a charging component as part of the solution and feeding into the analytics. This not only allows us to monitor the performance of the components, but also calculate their revenue generating capability in real time. This gives a much richer set of information which we can make decisions on. The impact of should I scale or should I not scale, based on actual real world revenue generating capability in real time. It's quite impressive.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up those topics. Those are all very similar things to what I heard. I was at the recent TM Forum event there in France, and those topics you brought up are the things that they were talking about there at the show. I mean, all the operators were talking about the needs for this, and it seems like, again, the work you guys are doing seems like it's really answering what's actually being asked right now by the operators. So interesting about those topics. It just really brought back a flood of memories there from last month's show. So interesting to hear those coming on. But I guess maybe from Maritza, again, as you look at the support from the telecom space, I mean, obviously a lot of these concepts and virtualization moves have kind of played out a bit in the data center world. So they are pretty well known, at least to the data center and IT space. But when it comes to the telecom operators, again, it's still somewhat new to them to an extent. Are you seeing a lot of support from them and trying to make sure they, I guess, get up to speed, rapidly and make sure they have the pieces in place to really make sure that they can take advantage of these services? Because again, it does seem like the telecom operators, do have different business models than perhaps a data center might have. But as you look at kind of how they're coming on board, I mean, are you seeing good support from the telecom operators in terms of this move towards real-time analytics and virtualization and orchestration?
Yes, Dan, absolutely. These are new topics for many telecom operators. But what we've seen, obviously, in the last couple of years with the emergence and expansion of NFV as a group within the ETSI, as well as, of course, the virtualization technologies being leveraged for supporting the virtual network functions. We've seen telecom operators taking the driving seat, especially within that group, to ensure that a set of standards are initiated and progressed. Because the only way to achieve real-time integration, full automation, is through defining a set of standardized open APIs. This is absolutely needed, and vendors and operators need to work together to achieve this. Like Jerry said, the focus of NFV was more on the data plane, so it is more recent that management and orchestration as well, interfaces and architecture have been more, let's say, efforts have been stepped up in these areas. So we're not quite there yet. What we've done in this proof of concept, we have taken the latest versions of these specifications. They're not finished, but they are at a good level, and we were able to implement these and complement where it was necessary to achieve this integrated analytics and orchestration for our scaling use case.
Interesting. Yeah, obviously the standards part of this is a big part as well. I know we had Jerry on a show a couple shows back, and I know Jerry, we talked a bit about the standards issues and kind of talking about where we were in that process. Obviously it's been a long time since we last talked, but as you look at the standards issue, again, the progress there, does it seem like it's still moving at a good pace? Obviously, like Mauricio was saying, that's a big part of this. You got to make sure that standards are in place, or at least a good framework is in place to make sure things can interoperate with each other. Are you still seeing some pretty good progress in terms of kind of this move towards standards, working with ETSI and different organizations like that?
Absolutely, and we also see more and more vendors embracing the concept of open standards. As I said last time I talked to you, I think operators have to be mindful, though, not to allow vendors to exceed the standards, and do these proprietary or standards plus stuff. We all have to go at the same pace here, because the need for interoperability in NFV is paramount, and thankfully we're seeing lots more ecosystems arising, showing the ability, including our own POC, in fact, the ability of many partners to partake in a standard orchestrated way of deploying service.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I know we talked a bit about that standards plus thing. That seems like kind of a challenge, is to make sure that these maybe more established vendors in the telecom space don't start kind of taking these standards and kind of putting their own stuff in them and making them not so standard anymore. That does seem to be a challenge. But again, it does seem like the operators, the ones I've talked to, at least here domestically, I know AT&T, for instance, is very, very upfront about the fact that they want to work with this open source community and doing a lot of stuff in open source. So that seems to be a positive move in this direction, at least. Obviously, once we get to the actual deployments, hopefully that stays like that. But at least it seems like it's good, at least to hear operators be very open to open source. I know at least in Europe, Telefonica has been very big about that. I know in Asia, Docomo, SK Telecom have also sounds like they've been pretty open to that. So it sounds like from your guys' point of view, at least from your point of view, that they are at least at this point still open to this openness, I guess, going forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very good. Well, yeah, I guess, and Maritza, maybe your view on kind of the open part, because again, like you said, that it is a big part of this. Obviously you guys are working with a lot of partners, and so open is a big part for what you guys are doing. Are you seeing that continued support from the vendor side of things when it comes to making sure that everybody's on the same page when it comes to moving forward with these initiatives? Because that is going to be a big part of this, making sure that operators can have this multi-vendor environment out there that they can at some point plug and play things and things will work together. Are you seeing good support there from the other vendors when it comes to working on open, at least some sort of open standards that allow this to have interoperability?
Yes, I think the community in general, the telecom industry is working in that direction. There is always challenges because I think it is it's a key requirement, but it is also a challenge, because clearly vendors tend to promote their edge in their product suites. They tend to maybe push forward with the APIs that better suit their product suites. So that is normal. But what we see changing with NFV in particular is a lot of ecosystems of partners have emerged. Many of them are driven by the operators. You mentioned AT&T with many of their initiatives. Telefonica in Europe is a good example as well as Deutsche Telecom and others. So that brings more and more vendors together, and that obviously promotes open APIs. We have done this with the partners, with a number of partners. We worked, apart from with OpenNet, in this proof of concept. We worked with Red Hat, we worked with Intel. Intel has a big ecosystem called network builders, so they are very big promoters of vendors getting together and working together and building various NFV proof of concepts. From our perspective of the orchestrator, of course, we're totally in favor of open APIs, being able to integrate with different vendors, standard-based. What we do is we make our orchestrator, what we say, runtime and real-time programmable. So for us, is all a model-driven API, so we can quickly adapt to different standards and to different, where necessary, proprietary as well APIs. But of course, we advocate open APIs as well as open source.
Yeah, very good. And again, for the orchestration layer of this, that's going to be a huge part of this too going forward, because again, you got these legacy systems that are still going to be running for years and years, and OSS, BSS systems out there that are going to have to be integrated with the new platforms. And so, yeah, having an orchestration layer that is real time and able to kind of work across, systems that could have been out there for 20 or 30 years, that's going to be a big challenge for you guys, I'm sure, going forward. That'll keep you guys busy, I'm sure.
Absolutely, but that's why we built a very flexible, programmable system, because we know as well that there is no such a thing as a revolution in networks. So it has got to be an evolution where legacy systems and new virtual, so legacy traditional hardware-based system will live together with the newer virtualized platforms, and orchestration systems need to allow operators to move, to migrate over, and for a period of a few years, I would assume, orchestrate both to provide end-to-end services to their customers.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to watch how that part of it plays out, at least over a time frame situation. So that'll be interesting to watch that. Well, maybe a final topic for you guys, kind of looking at, you guys kind of touched on some of the challenges already, kind of going forward on this. I guess maybe Jerry, from your point of view, and I guess when it comes to the kind of the automation, orchestration, and also analytics aspect, what sort of challenges do you see in that market going forward when it comes to kind of the telecom space, adopting these for these new VNFs and NFV type of platforms? What do you see, I guess, maybe the biggest challenges for what you guys are seeing out there on the market right now?
I think that, as Maurizio mentioned earlier, it's the fact that a lot of the effort in NFV was concentrated on data plane issues for a while, and we're only now beginning to get to grips with the orchestration challenges. Yeah. And we're a little bit slower there, and we need to speed up, because obviously this is key to the adoption of this technology. I think we will make we'll make strides there. The other thing, of course, is the kind of interaction between NFV and big data. All of these components deploying in a cloud type environment have the potential to generate a lot more information. The data collection of that is going to be a challenge, and and what we do with the analytics when we start perceiving these, the ability to do things like self-organizing networks and proactive network maintenance. The opportunities are very exciting.
Sure. Yeah. It seems like the challenges there are just so enormous. Obviously, I know you guys are working hard on this, and the whole vendor community is working very hard on this, but those challenges seem like they are just that'll keep you guys busy, I know, for a long time. It just seemed like a big push for you guys. But well, maybe Maurizio, maybe again, you touched on some challenges already earlier too. But as you look forward, the next 12 to 18 months, what's going to be kind of those topics that are going to keep you extra busy, keep you long hours at the office going forward.
Right. Well, yes, we want to get more and more involved into making the open APIs standardized and open. We work a lot with partners such as OpenET, but as well as the likes of Intel, where there is a bigger community. From our perspective, we want to build as many possible use cases and case studies with a number of VNF vendors to prove the interoperability. I beg your pardon. Is actually doable. It can be solved now. We don't necessarily need to wait for standards to be fully finalized and formalized. We can progress with what we have. Show that use cases can be implemented and trialed right now. I think, the challenge is to move from this phase of proof of concept to the full commercialization. And I believe, hopefully, towards the end of this year and probably will pick up speed even more so in 2016, we'll see real commercialization of
Yeah, I guess I was going to ask you guys about that too. I guess on a time frame looking forward, again, there has been talk about getting this stuff done, seeing some commercial launches later this year, into 2016. But again, it does seem like there's so many challenges still that need to be kind of worked out there. I guess as operators deploy this, if they do it in maybe small little silos or little parts of the network, perhaps it makes sense to kind of start rolling it out at those timeframes. But do you still see kind of a late 2015, 2016 timeframe for maybe some of these commercial deployments of these types of services on operator networks then? For Maurizio, your comment there.
Okay, yes. That's what we gather from talking to operators and our partners. It seems, I guess what the industry says is 2014 was the year of proof of concepts, 2015 the trials, and 2016 is full-blown, real-world, commercialized projects. So we hope it will go that way. We get the sense that it is going that way, and hopefully there will be no additional delays.
That makes sense. And Jerry, time frame, are you looking pretty solid? I think on the same kind of time frame that everybody else is looking at there for these deployments?
Yeah, I think so. I think 2015 is going to be the year of commercial deployments, and just because we face challenges, particularly in the standards for orchestration, that doesn't stop operators actually deploying solutions already. And many of the trials I know have been successful, and particularly in the more niche areas like the M2Ms and so forth, where massive throughput isn't a requirement. I think we're going to see more and more of those going forward in the very near future.
Yeah, that should be interesting, Steve. That sounds great. Well, guys, hey, again, we definitely appreciate the great insight on this topic today. Again, it's something we cover here on a weekly basis. I know I've talked again with Jerry in the past on this too. It's something we hope to cover on an ongoing basis going forward as well. But it's definitely exciting times right now in the virtualization space, and obviously you guys have a lot of work ahead of you and a lot of good progress ahead of you. So again, we appreciate the time and insight today. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us, Dan.
Great, thanks so much. Well, again, I want to thank everyone for joining us on this week's NFV SDN Reality Check, and make sure to check us out again next week for a new show. Thanks for watching.
NFV SDN Reality Check with Dan Meyer is a production of RCR TV. To suggest show topics or to reach Dan, you can find him on email, dmeyer@rcrwireless.com, and on Twitter @Meyer_Dan. For more Dan, news on NFV SDN and everything wireless, find your way over to rcrwireless.com.